There she goes. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Anderson. I'm the president of the board here at Unity. And I just want to say how happy we are to see you. Those of you on Zoom may not be able to see, but we have quite a few people here in the sanctuary today. So thank you all for coming, whether you're here in person or on Zoom. If you did not see last Thursday's e-blast, I wanted to share with you the great news that Reverend Elizabeth Longo, who is our transition minister, joined us this past week. So we are so excited to have her with us. I know that we will benefit from her leadership and guidance in the next few months, as well as her positive energy and enthusiasm. Our guest speaker today is David Gardner, and if you can see the stage, you will see that he is here in person. So we are very happy to have him here. David has been a professor of religion at Colorado College since 1998. He specializes as both a teacher and scholar in Buddhism and the religions of China and Japan. He received his PhD in religious studies from Stanford University and has spent several years doing research in Japan. David has contributed to the In Good Faith interfaith column in the Colorado Springs Indy newspaper for over 10 years and regularly gives talks in the community. He's also the co-founder and president of the local educational nonprofit Bodhi Mind Center, which shares ideas and practices from the Buddhist tradition with all interested. You may recall that in past years, Bodhi Mind has had a presence here at Unity, sharing our space. This year, Bodhi Mind plans to run a capital campaign to acquire its own property to serve the Pikes Peak region for generations to come. You'll hear from David shortly. Let's begin by singing our opening song, Sanctuary, together. Connie?
Good morning. Would you turn the mic off? Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to have you in the room. And Zoomies, we love you here, and I don't blame you. It's icy out there this morning, so it's nice to have a coffee in your own house, isn't it, when it's icy outside? Well, we're going to sing this song as we have for quite a long time. You'll have to let me know if it's time for a change. Sometimes it's time for a change, but I have not heard that comment from anyone. And until I do, we're going to sing it. And this song helps us to remember to be a sanctuary for our hearts and for each other. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. One more time. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you, a sanctuary for you. Oops, I'm up. I am here now to call on Jean Dutton, our prayer chaplain, to open us in prayer. I imagine, Jean, are you on Zoom? Must be.
There you go. Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, okay. Let us take this time to be still and release any concerns that we have and drop down to our heart. Breathe in life and love. And know that I love not only my family and friends, but I love the condition of my life. I bear no resentment, and nothing happens out of order or by chance. And the great law of love brings those very conditions in my life which I need for growth. So I accept all that happens. I look for the lesson that has to be learned from this experience. I look up to God daily, hourly, and I am filled with the divine light and love. It pours like a golden ray into my heart and head center, cleansing, healing, uplifting, steadying, and giving me life. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And so it is. Amen and amen.
Thank you, Jean. Uplifting and steadying. Aren't those two beautiful words? In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. It's a love that heals and sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, that sets me free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. David.
It's a great pleasure to be here on multiple levels. I'm so happy you all are meeting in person finally. I've been teaching in person at the college, but we all have masks on, and I even have to teach with a mask on. But I was told today that up here, singing or speaking, we don't need a mask. So I'm happy for that. It feels freer. It feels a little bit more intimate somehow. And I know everyone's vaccinated, and I know I'm more than 6 feet away from you. So you should feel safe. I'm triply vaccinated. It's really a pleasure to be with you all during this time before the service begins, before I speak. I haven't met in community with my spiritual friends for a long time. So I do my own meditation practice alone, and I do my own prayers alone. But there's something special about doing it in a group. And there's something even more special for me right now about doing it with a group that's less familiar to me, and of hearing words and gestures and certain ways of framing our hopes and desires for our human and non-human world in slightly different imagery and language that seems to resonate around the same core themes. As Connie was singing just there, there's only love, there's only love. I'm going to talk, and I'm going to read some and show you a few slides from things that I've prepared over the past few weeks, especially last night, but notes over a few weeks. And the topic of love does not come out centrally in what I'm speaking, but I'm going to share with you some ideas from the Buddhist tradition, particularly the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, but it derives from its Indian roots, that express, I think, ways in which we can learn to train ourselves so that love can flow more freely, if that makes sense. I believe in the Buddhist tradition, the many intellectual and philosophical devices that they constructed and the many meditation practices that they've inculcated are really about making ourselves vessels so that love can be more effective. Freeing ourselves up from all the obstacles that prevent love, and as we know, there are so many, and allowing us to be more skillful, more joyous, and more abundantly energetic and creative in the ways that we practice love. To me, that's the heart of the Buddhist tradition. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have been drawn to it when I was a little puppy in India at age 23. And I almost became a monk, but I chickened out. I took another path. Let me read a little bit. Tibetan Buddhism uses the word Bardo, which means in-between state, to refer to a period they recognize as occurring between death and rebirth. However, the term also has a much broader application in the tradition. They speak of each moment, each period of time, regardless of its duration, as also being a bardo, or an in-between. How does this idea provide strength and hope? Here's a hint. It's about the fundamental, profound, and promising truth of impermanence in our lives. Some people hear the Buddhist message of impermanence and think it's a bit depressing because all the good things will pass. But it also means that every moment, the entire past, in a way, has passed, and we're open to the present fully, and therefore to creating powerful and beautiful seeds for the future. That's also the flip side of the teaching of impermanence. I'm aware that unity spiritual centers in an interim period of uncertainty and doubt, and that many of you are wanting and waiting, and that you probably have some hope that things will again be as they used to be. But of course, how could that ever be? The concept of Bardo highlights the power of the in-betweens. We can learn to relish the opportunity to drill down into, in a metaphor of contemplation, to drill down into what's transpiring in our mind, in our whole being, rather than wanting to be comforted by something familiar. We also learn to hunker down, to both gather and to adjust resources, old and new. We realize how much our past experience conditions what we want and what we expect from the future. We can learn so much from change, and we had better, right? We don't have much choice. We can close the learning or open it. Bardo is an in-between time, and the word is really a reminder, as I mentioned already, that all times are in between. Tibetan Buddhists identify 4 significant types of Bardo, and we're not going to discuss these in detail, but I just want you to know. Of course, there's an infinite number of Bardos, but they have a template of 4. One is the natural Bardo, they call it, of this life. Seems like this life is much more than just a Bardo, but compared to our planetary history and to what Buddhists would call our innumerable past lives, this life is brief and yet significant. 2, what they call the painful Bardo of dying. I've had friends who've died recently. My brother died last year. I haven't been with someone during the stages of dying, but I went through hospice training many years ago, and the nurses who trained me said they had experienced deaths from the most sublime and spiritual moments of peace and beauty to torturous moments where you just wanted to run away, and everything in between. They said the latter painful ones were few, but real. For some, it's physically difficult, and for those around them, also emotionally difficult. But as we know, there can be a wide spectrum. The painful Bardo of dying is this period spanning from the beginning of the dying process, however one defines that, right up until what the Tibetans call the dawning of the nature of mind, which they say happens after physical death. What they call death actually is when a priest can come and a trained one detect that actually the consciousness or the spirit has left the body. And that can be minutes, hours, or even days after flatlining in the medical sense. That moment is called the dawning of the nature of the mind, just before the consciousness leaves, or the ground luminosity. It's the deepest nature of our mind. The ground luminosity manifests there. And for people well trained, they actually, even post-death, use that moment as a powerful entrance to a kind of meditation that can release one completely. That's the painful Bardo of dying. 3rd is the luminous Bardo of Dharmata. Dharmata means really the ultimate nature of things as they truly are, reality in the raw, and our own mind manifests that after physical death. And if we can connect with it through meditation practice prior to dying, it's an opening, transformative, liberating time. The after-death experience of the radiance of the nature of mind, the luminosity or clear light, which can manifest as color, sound, as well as light. And then 4th, the Bardo of becoming, which is what we generally call the Bardo or the intermediate state. That's the Bardo between death and the dawning of luminosity, and when one, if one is coming back to the cycle of rebirth, enters that new life form. Not through birth, but for example, if it were to be a human, as a conceptus in the womb. And the Tibetans say that's 49 days if you're to come back to the human realm, and other periods for other realms. And that's a time when the spirit, for lack of a better term, might kind of float around. It's kind of driven by the forces of its own past actions and karma. And when the 49-day period comes to an end, it's drawn into the womb, if it's going to be a human realm, of a woman with whom it either has past experience or some likeness of character and energy habits. In a sense, we choose our mom. That's the last Bardo of becoming, and it's the one they talk most about, the Bardo state between death and rebirth. The general connotation of the characteristics of this term Bardo is a state in flux or change and of uncertainty. because you don't know what's coming. The flux is more of an objective quality, and the uncertainty is more subjective, if you know what I mean. Related to these characteristics are the reality of impermanence and our clinging to things as they used to be, because we don't know what's coming. Here also, therefore, fear enters the picture for many, because we are afraid that things will change in an unwanted way. And yet, hope also shows up, because we are afraid that things will change. Because we desperately want something better to appear in the future. It's something about our human nature, and it's not a bad thing. I'm going to share some thoughts from a book called the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It's not the famous Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is about 1,300 years old. I won't go into that one, but it's a modern book written about 25 years ago by a teacher named Sogyal Rinpoche, who I believe is still alive. First, some thoughts from him and then a quote. He suggests, imagine coming home into your house and finding the front door is open because it has been broken into. The latch is busted and there are dirty footprints in the hallway. Or coming home to your house on fire. In the first case, you might see things trashed, things stolen, a shock, right? I've had friends who've encountered such, I have not. Or you come home and your house is on fire or near on fire or burned. When you lose just about everything, here's what he says. Next slide, please. If you press the return button, it will come. There we go. He writes, I can go down on mine, I'm not connected. It hits you, you've lost everything. Your restless, agitated mind is then stunned and thoughts subside, and there's a sudden, deep stillness, almost an experience of bliss. No more struggle, no more effort, because both are hopeless. Now you just have to give up and you have no choice. If you've ever faced a real difficult moment, there can be a time when the pain of it all subsides for a moment and you're just there with what is. That's what he describes here. Next slide, please. I think you can just press return. Oh boy. There you go. So one moment you have lost something precious, and then in the very next moment, you find your mind is resting in a deep state of peace. When this kind of experience occurs, do not immediately rush to find solutions. Remain for a while in that state of peace. Allow it to be a gap. Another word for that would be an in-between or a Bardo. And if you really rest in that gap, looking into the mind, you will catch a glimpse of the deathless nature of the enlightened mind, or what might be called the luminosity of the clear state. Next slide, please. The deeper our sensitivity and the more acute our alertness to the amazing opportunities for radical insight offered by gaps and transitions like these in life, the more inwardly prepared we will be for when they occur in an immensely more powerful and uncontrolled way at death. There's this powerful Tibetan practice that suggests that not only in our meditation, but in our daily life, especially when we encounter very difficult situations, if we can allow ourselves to sort of drill down and to see, in spite of all the fear and anxiety and perhaps anger that arises in really difficult situations, if we allow that shock just to still us or stun us in a sense and drop down into the nature of mind beneath the waves of fear and tumult to something deeper and stiller, we train ourselves actually to be in connection with the state that arises around the time of death, and to be therefore more at ease with death, which is of great benefit to us, but also to those who are around us when we die. So this kind of practice has multiple implications. Next slide, please. This is extremely important, he writes, because the Bardo teachings tell us that there are moments when the mind is far freer than usual. Moments far more powerful than others, which carry far stronger karmic charge and implication. Those are moments when you really touch at the deepest level, when you drop the bucket down to the bottom of the well and you see that the water there is fresh. And a realization emerges in that moment. And if you allow that realization to sink in, it trains you at the deepest level. Some would say even at a subcellular level of our being, something opens up, something frees. And as I mentioned before, we could say it's not just insight and freedom and liberation, but an insight of the insight that develops within us energy patterns that then become free and less trapped in our less wholesome energy patterns that can free us to engage in a world more lovingly, more spontaneously, more compassionately, more generously, more patiently, etc. I want to read now a few passages from another Tibetan author. She's an American woman named Pema Chodron. You may have heard some of you of her books. She's an American Buddhist nun. I believe she's in her 80s now. She still teaches. She's probably written about 25 books. Next to the Dalai Lama, her books are some of the best-selling ones in Buddhist circles. And this is from her book called When Things Fall Apart. Next slide, please. The first noble truth of the Buddha is that when we feel suffering, it doesn't mean that something's wrong. What a relief. Finally, somebody told the truth. Suffering is a part of life, and we don't have to feel it's happening because we personally made the wrong move. In reality, however, when we feel suffering, we tend to think something is wrong. As long as we're addicted to hope, we feel that we can tone our experience down or liven it up or change it somehow, and we continue to suffer a lot. She's suggesting because we're not in the present, we're just dreaming about a future. Next slide, please. This is a slide of a Tibetan monk that I took in a monastery in Nepal, where I was about 10 years ago. You've heard of Tibetan prayer wheels, where they spin these little wheels? These are huge ones. These are like nuclear prayer wheels. They're filled with millions and millions of prayers wrapped around a central pole. And this man every morning in this building that was about the size of this building here we're in now, with 3 huge prayer wheels, he would just walk every morning for about an hour spinning each one and walk in a circle around them. And I joined him, but at one moment I took a video and took a picture. He's not trying to change the future with his prayers. He's trying to focus his mind that he can be centrally grounded in a space of peace, a space of loving kindness, a space of compassion. He is also praying that all beings be free, but he knows that that freedom comes from one's heart, and to the extent that he can himself model and embody such peace that brings freedom, he wishes that for others. But it's very much a training of the mind as opposed to a prayer for the world, if you know what I mean, although it combines both. I'm going to read from Pema Chodron a little bit more, but it's not on the screen. The word in Tibetan for hope is called rewa, and the word for fear is dokpa, but the two get put together most commonly as re-dok. Hope and fear is a feeling with 2 sides. As long as there's one, there's always the other. And I want you to know where she's going here is to say that the word redok that combines hope and fear are ways in which we escape from the present. Hope and fear. Hope has its place, but we can be holding on too strongly to a future dream that pulls us away from the present. This redok is the root of our pain. In the world of hope and fear, we always have to change the channel, change the temperature, change the music, become something, because something is getting uneasy, something is getting restless, something is beginning to hurt, and we keep looking for alternatives. In a non-theistic or Buddhist state of mind, where we don't believe there's a God who can change it all for us, that we have to draw on internal resources, abandoning hope is actually an affirmation. It's the beginning of the beginning. You could even put the slogan, abandon hope, on your refrigerator door, instead of more conventional aspirations like every day and in every way I'm getting better and better. I mean, it's not bad to think every day I'm getting better and better, but on the other hand, just be fully present. I know some of us get depressed and have low self-esteem for whatever reasons, and a real positive message is important. And she's not making fun of that potential. I hope you understand. But there is a way in which we can invest all our mentality in a future that's separate from the present, and then we're actually not preparing ourselves for it. We're actually not present. Hope and fear come from feeling that we lack something, she writes. They come from a sense of poverty, which reminds me wonderfully, I mentioned in the last talk I gave here, the writings of a great Christian scholar, Walter Brueggemann, whose book on the prophetic imagination in the early 1970s, one of his 25 books on the Bible, is profound. And he talks about how we live in a world that is dominated by a consciousness in the old days by the rabbi hierarchy and the emperors and the kings and the Egyptian, who were those guys? Pharaohs, etc. And today it's by capitalist rulers and government rulers that try to instill in us that we are insufficient and that we always need more. A world of neediness and scarcity, he suggested. And that's a problem. Jesus taught us, as did the manna falling from heaven in the Old Testament, that we have what we need to love one another. And that's all we need. It's a beautiful book, The Prophetic Imagination. She's saying something similar here from a Buddhist perspective. Hope and fear come from the feeling that we lack something. They come from a sense of poverty. We simply can't relax ourselves with ourselves. We hold on to a hope, and hope robs us of the present moment. We feel that someone else knows what's going on, but that there's something missing in us, and therefore something's lacking in our world. And so we need to find ways to turn that mentality around 180. My words now. Pema Chodron here exhorts us to instead take a good look at the present moment, especially our feelings of ourself and our world as being incomplete and flawed, and simply to observe these feelings as they are and to become aware that these are just feelings. This is a little message of mindfulness here. Mindfulness teaches us to focus in the Buddhist tradition, but it also teaches us to see that the stuff that floats through our mind is just that often. Stuff that floats through our mind, it's thoughts, it's feelings, and we can learn to rest in something that's not thoughts and feelings and to no longer identify so strongly just with thoughts and feelings. You might call that deeper state spirit, you might call that deeper state divine, you might call it ground luminosity. But through practice of mindfulness, we learn not to identify with the thoughts and feelings, whether they be of hope or of fear. She writes one more, Pema Chodron, we can know the nature of dislike, shame, and embarrassment, and yet we can learn to not believe that there's something wrong with that these feelings that arise with us do not mean there's something wrong with us. The fact that we're embarrassed, the fact that we're ashamed, it's okay, it's part of our human condition. We can drop the fundamental hope that there's a better me who will someday emerge. We can also apply this is my words, this attitude towards our whole life and towards the world around us. We can't just jump over ourselves, she says, as if we were not there. It's better to take a straight look at all our hopes and fears, and then some kind of confidence in our basic sanity arises. The prayer wheel, not trying to change the world, but to train our mind to focus on the present moment, on impermanence, and on cultivating peace, love, and patience. The next slide, please. Near the end. One of my favorite quotes from the Buddha. He walked around on the earth a lot barefoot 2,500 years ago, and he noticed animal prints. And he noticed that one of the most amazing is the footprint of an elephant. It must be this big and this deep if the ground is soft, right? So he says, of all footprints, that of the elephant is the most impressive. And of all contemplations, that focused on impermanence and death leaves the greatest impression. It's a wonderful image because the footprint of the elephant sinking into the earth is a metaphor of how our own reflection on the realities of impermanence. For example, not only that we know we will die, none of us will be here in 100 years, but we don't know when. And to live honestly is to live in that awareness, and that, the impression of such a practice, the impression to press down like the elephant's footprint, is profound. You might have read yourself one of Rumi's verses, the great Sufi poet, Rumi, it's not up here, about how the cracks in a clay pot allow the light to shine in. He refers to our own imperfections, our flaws, and the imperfection of not having the community we want just the way we want it, and not being ourselves just the way we want to be, perfect. that these cracks are like a Bardo allowing some light to shine in from beyond our obsessive compulsion with trying to make something out of our world. Openings, a break of routine, is a time for slowing down and looking within, finding movements, power, and beauty where you've forgotten that they resides. Can you point to the last slide and maybe the video works here? I don't know. I don't know if you can get the video to go. If you just click the image, maybe? Yes. I took this yesterday on a walk and I didn't know why, but I love the image of water flowing under a hole on a stream. I live near the incline in Manitou Springs and I walk up this hill often and I sit by the stream in the summer. This time I stood away because I would have fallen in the winter. Look at the beauty of the water moving under the ice. The hole is a kind of opening. It's a kind of Bardo. The hope we feel can sometimes feel like a lot of clinging and craving, which leaves little energy or little room for innovation, for newness to enter the surface. At times, too much hope can be a sort of tunnel vision, closing off possibilities that might arrive from the sidelines, the periphery, or below, as in this image. Real creativity does arrive from the periphery, from the horizons, and from below. Maybe we need to drop the first letter of hope and leave the last three, O-P-E, and just add N. Open. Open. Or we can combine the two in a new word, hopin'. I'm a hopin'. Feel the fullness of the moment as the movement of thoughts, hopes, and fears pass by like clouds in the sky. And notice the clear blue sky of your spirit's fundamental radiant nature, and to see that it possesses within it an infinity of potential. Vast open or hopen horizons of possibility are present right here and right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. Wow, I love that phrase you said, rest in the gap. You know, that is one that's going to stick with me and for me to embody, rest in the gap. Because isn't it true, we just want to cling to the familiar and what was, and life is just not going to let us do that. We got to get over it. Two people kiss goodbye outside a college dorm, where one will stay while one drives home, and the emptiness weighs them down. Time for letting go, but they don't know how. When we stand between the no longer and the not yet, sometimes we falter when we forget that the answers we can't see wait patiently between the no longer and the not yet, between the no longer and the not yet. Sometimes we falter when we forget that the answers we can't see. Wait patiently between the no longer and the not yet. Between the no longer and the not yet. I am not caught between. I am not trapped between. I am not running. I am standing in the gap. When we stand between the no longer and the not yet. Sometimes we falter and we forget that the answers we can't see. Wait patiently between the no longer and the not yet. Between the no longer and the not yet. Let's all rest in the gap. Thank you.
That was the perfect song, Connie, to follow David's talk. She is, isn't she? She is. A special thanks to all of you who support Unity financially. Your generosity makes such a difference in our sustainability, so thank you all so much. If you are attending in person, instead of our passing the offering plates as we have in the past, we have a beautiful new offering box at the back of the sanctuary, so feel free to drop your contributions in there as you leave. For those of you who are on Zoom, Kayla is going to put the donation information in the chat box, as well as the affirmation of abundance words. So please join with me in saying the affirmation of abundance. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. I turn the program over now to Board Member Luanna Turner for the announcements.
Okay, it's on. Yes, I am Luanna Turner, a member of the board, and thank you so much, David, for joining us.
My pleasure.
If you missed the virtual town hall meeting last Sunday, the board gave an overview of the last 2 years and shared how our community members are needed in 2022 to step up in a bigger way to share their time, talent, and treasure. Your volunteerism as a board member, a bingo volunteer, a member of the Centennial Planning Committee, or helping with temple keeper responsibilities, as well as financial support, are vital. We do continue to accept nominations for the Board of Trustees for the 2022 through 2024 term. This is a vital and fulfilling opportunity for Unity members to help guide the future of our community. If you are interested in serving on the board or would like to nominate someone, please use the board nomination form. You can click the link in Thursday's e-blast for the form. After completing the form, email it to the board at unityrockies.org or mail to Unity Spiritual Center in the Rockies. The address is 1945 Mesa Road, Colorado Springs, Colorado, 80904. And we surely look forward to hearing from you. The Sacred Women's Circle has several interesting volunteer opportunities as well. The steering committee for the Sacred Women's Circle comprises a dynamic team that works to bring inspirational and insightful topics for presentations, activities, and discussions to the monthly meetings. Please contact me at luana.turner@gmail.com or 719-331-2420 to discuss your interests and how you can become a part of this important team. We also have opportunities on the team to help by leading or joining groups for various projects. If you're a new Unity student or you want to strengthen your foundation of Unity teachings, the Unity Basics class is for you. This 4-week class covers the founding of the Unity movement, affirmations and denials, and much more. And if you are interested in becoming a prayer chaplain, this is a required class. This class will meet on Sunday, February 13th and 20 and 27th, and March 6th from 11:15 to 12:15 on the Zoom. Please contact Linda Anthony to register. Her email address is included in Thursday's e-blast. Your email address is needed so you can receive the link to the class and the handouts. The history team of our Centennial Planning Committee has begun to sort the boxed materials that have been stored here at Unity. Rhett Kurgis and Chris Pelican spent most of last year scanning crucial documents and pictures from these materials for use in a scrapbook. The remaining paper documents have been sorted chronologically by decade, placed in piles in Fellowship Hall. We invite the community to take some time to go through these piles. We are requesting to have the documents dated and annotated. There are many pictures in the collection as well that need dates and identification. Post-it notes have been provided at the end of the first table along with pencils and pens. Feel free to make notes on these and attach the Post-its to the pictures or documents that are missing information. For those attending today, feel free to spend some time in Fellowship Hall after the service to look through the materials. Or you can also stop by Unity on Monday, tomorrow, from 10 to 3. Your help is greatly needed and appreciated. Oh, okay, 1 to 3, correction. Also, Kayla, administrative assistant, will be working in the building on Tuesdays from 9 to 12. If you have a need to stop by, please email her at unity@unityrockies.org to let her know you'll be stopping by and the approximate time. This would be a good time to drop by to look through those historical materials or to check out a library book. As part of our centennial celebration offerings this year, we are sharing writings from members of the community answering one or more of these questions in the weekly e-blast. Why did you come to Unity in the Rockies? Why does Unity matter to you? How has Unity changed you? What are your hopes for the future? Our members, Penny Olson and Donna Grant, have shared their stories in the last 2 e-blasts. If you would like to share your experience, please mail it to Peg Nugent. Her email is in the Thursday's e-blast. Some of you reported to Kayla that you're not receiving the e-blast. She researched the problem with Constant Contact recently, believes she has fixed the problem. If you're not receiving the e-blast, email Kayla at unity@unityrockies.org. In order to keep you safe and healthy, we are requiring masks and social distancing. We continue to maintain a list of those who have shown proof of vaccination, so you'll only have to show it once. We are testing out air purifiers in the sanctuary to keep the air as clean as possible for our in-person attendees. Speaker next week is Reverend Elizabeth Longo. Please join us. As we continue our search for a permanent senior minister, I ask the community to join with me now to say our affirmation for a new minister. Kayla is putting the words in the chat box. For those attending in person, please repeat after me. With gratitude for the past, we align vibrationally to demonstrate and attract the highest level of leadership in accordance with cosmic law for Unity Spiritual Center in the Rockies. Thank you. Our prayer chaplain, Jean Dutton, will now lead us in the closing prayer via Zoom. Also, Norma Crawford is with us in the sanctuary and is available for individual prayer after the service if you would like to pray with her. Jean?
Let us take this moment for stillness and breathe in the life of God and do so again. Breathe in the life of God. And bring to mind any one family, loved one, or person that would like prayer for whatever. And say their name silently or out loud. Carol, Nancy, Kathy, loved ones, the world. And know that the indwelling divine presence invites us to look beyond any condition in mind, body, or soul, or illness, and embrace the healing energy that is always quickening every cell of the body. We see the body radiant with the life of God just as it is. I say yes to wholeness in mind, body, and affairs. And so it is. Amen and amen.
Thank you, Jean. And we have a very special event just to announce and celebrate right now, too. Norma, would you come up and stand beside the flowers here so the people on Zoom can see you? We would love to wish Norma a happy, happy birthday. And it's up to you, Norma. Would you like me to share how many wonderful years you are here? And maybe you figured out how many more you want? Norma says she's going for as long as possible, and this is her 80th birthday this week. So let's sing to her. On Zoom, please join us. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Norma. Happy birthday to you. And many more. And Norma said she feels so loved. Thank you very much. It's hard when we don't have a mic and we don't want the Zoomies to feel left out. So I will just report back. Before we sing our closing song, if you would like to stay for the Zoom breakout rooms or stay for the Zoom breakout room from here in this room, please do so. Kayla will make that happen. And if you're not going to stay for the breakout rooms, we would like you to exit fairly rapidly, because if they were talking, they can't hear on Zoom. And you can visit a little bit in the foyer before you leave. That would be wonderful. So let's all prepare to close our time together with our closing song. And in the room here, if you would like to stand, which seems to have been happening lately anyway, I can't do anything about it. I may as well join, right? Let the light within you shine. We are all, but we're probably not going to hold hands, everybody. Let's keep our distance. Look into another's eyes. See your light reflected. We are one light shining souls in harmony. We are one light shining in unity. Have a blessed week, everyone. And again, if someone comes to your mind, reach out to them. Trust that. We are all connected. Trust it and reach out. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye. So if you want to stay for the Zoom room, please come on up front where you'll be able to see here. And if you want to chat on Zoom, you would use the microphone at the podium so they can hear you. They can only hear us via the electronics in the room.